That that is how you do a premiere for a final season of your show. Hey guys, it's Kevin again. This morning my review for the season premiere, the final season of Justified, Season 6, Episode 1, Fate's Right Hand. And guys, I was so looking forward to this premiere. I knew what the plot of the season was, and I was so looking forward to it. It just looked so amazing. It really did. It looked like it wasn't going to disappoint at all. Last season they kind of had a little bit of a time when I wasn't really as into as I wanted to be. And I think the thing with last season was just the story was not that interesting. But the story this year is so much more interesting. You know, it's now all about Boyd and it's the final season. And I was hoping it'd be satisfying. And how was this premiere? This premiere was amazing. I love what they did this premiere. And it was kind of different than what they've done in the previous premieres. Previous premieres they do is they set up all the storylines and they introduce all these characters. This episode was very different than that. This episode was more of showing what's going to happen this season and the state that the characters are in. I definitely really enjoyed seeing that about this episode. But let's just get to it because I absolutely loved it and I really want to talk about it. So, we see Winona, surprisingly, who we only see every so often, which is good because she's kind of an annoying character. She stares at her daughter, offers her a toy. She tells her that her dad is tough, but there's no match for the graveyard shift. She asks Raylan what's worth missing this for, and I can understand what she's saying, but at the same time, like, he can't just drop everything and go back to his family. She needs to understand that. And then we see Raylan, and this was just awesome. He's on the streets of Laredo, Mexico. He heads into the bar where some federals are at the bar, and he orders bourbon and gets nothing, so he asks for tequila instead. And he says he's looking for a federal named Aguilar, and the guy asks what he wants, and he asks who Raylan is, and he tells him, of course, who he is, and he asks about an abandoned truck in the desert with American drug-running bodies, and Raylan says he doesn't care what he did or if he took money, he just wants to know about the men that walked out alone, and a Guyler asks if that big hat makes him think he has Big Jones, and this guy is just such a dick. Like, you don't mess with Raylan, and I love Raylan's attitude. I've always loved Raylan's, like, I don't take shit from people attitude. Like, he's so, like, tough, but he's also very, like, fair and patient, and, he says a ranger badge means something, but a U.S. Marshal not so much. He threatens to throw Raylan in jail, tells him to get lost. All Raylan's trying to do is just get allies for Boyd, and Raylan says he'll be in touch and leaves, and a Guyler calls him an asshole. He gets out his car keys, watches from the car, he gets into his cop car, and Raylan drives in the side of it, smashes it up. The guy's hurt, and he's like, hey, I told you I'd be in touch. That was awesome. That was awesome when he said that. I love when Raylan messes with people. It's so awesome to watch. He drags a guy out of the car, he shoves a Guyler into the trunk, drives him across the border. He says his star means something there and asks if he's ready to talk now, and that was just awesome to watch. I loved it when he just kidnapped him and everything. I love that. So Boyd sleeps, and we get this really cool montage of Boyd. What I really like about this is we were seeing the kind of character Boyd is now. He sleeps, he's woken up by barking dogs, finally gets up, looks around, checks the time. It's early and splashes water on his face. Now, if you remember, he's not working in the heroin business anymore because he told Wynn and Catherine that he doesn't want to do that anymore. What he wants to do now is rob banks. So we see a montage of what he does now. He tucks a gun into his pants, heads out, tells his buddy to not smoke dope in his truck, goes into a bank to open a safety deposit box, quotes Thomas Jefferson to Joyce, the bank employee, but she's not impressed. His buddy comes in asking for help, and she leaves him in the safety deposit room alone. He pops open his briefcase, puts on gloves, sprays something off a bunch of boxes, walks out of the bank, and there's Tim. And Tim and Rachel, a lot of people always complain Tim and Rachel do not have a lot of stuff to do. They had tons of stuff to do in this episode. Tons of stuff. And I love seeing all the stuff that they had to do in this episode because I've always been kind of upset they haven't done a lot to do. And they had tons of stuff to do in this episode. It was great to see. So Tim is snapping photos of him crossing the street, getting into his truck, and that just set the tone perfectly for the season. I absolutely love that. And we then see Ava. And Ava, there's a lot going on with Ava now because Ava's kind of in a very depressing state. Not only is she suffering from returning back from prison, but of course what Raylan asked her to do. So Ava wakes up to the sound of steps in her porch. She gets up and looks around and looks outside, and she sees it's Boyd unloading some stuff in size. And at first I kind of thought they weren't living together. I don't know why. I thought like they had separated or something because we didn't see when he woke up, we didn't see Ava by his side. So I don't know what's going on with them, if they like separate or something. But clearly they're not really on good terms because Ava doesn't really want to see him. So she pulls out her smokes lights. When she comes out and asks where's Hollis, he says he let him go. And she says she hired Hollis to do the job. He says, what's mine is yours, so he thought he'd do it himself. She asks him what and offers him a drink. He asks for a cold beer and he asks if she'll have one with him, but she says she just woke up. He tells her he knows what she's going through, just getting out of jail. And he says if she wants to talk about that or anything, he can listen. And I like that he said that because she's not talking to him. She's not talking to him. She's not really doing it. She wants nothing to do with him, really. And I really felt bad for Boyd because he wants to be a good, he wants to be a good husband to her. He really cares about her and everything, but he wants to be a good. Fiance. I think is that. Oh yeah, I think they're engaged. But he wants to be a good fiance her and everything, and he cares about her. So, like, he really wants to be there for her, and I really felt bad for Boyd because of that. So, but it's kind of just the position that Ava's in. Ava's a very different character this season. She's much more bitter. She's much more sad, and basically, she goes in to get him a beer, pulls out some vodka too. She gets a text from her to pay a bill now, and I'm like, why aren't you paying your bills? Like, she's not paying her bills. We see that she hasn't paid her bills for weeks. She sips some vodka, and then we see Raylan. He comes to the office, and Rachel has now taken Art's place, because of course Art was severely injured. He does not want to go back to being the chief marshal. Rachel is now the chief marshal, and I like seeing Rachel in this position. It's cool to see her there, especially because a lot of people complain Rachel doesn't have a lot of stuff to do, and it was cool to see Rachel in this position. So Rachel asks why he seems so happy, and he says he found the federal that locked him up. He says his testimony will give Boyd murder one. He says Dewey Crow witnessed it, and Vasquez says Dewey is being released. Vasquez is like, seriously? So Raylan says to get Reardon to block it. Now Vasquez is saying that Raylan's harassment of Dewey and the so many one makes that hard. And Raylan says maybe it's not that bad, and says he can hang himself on the rope, and I love the scene with Dewey. We got a lot more with Dewey tonight, which I actually really enjoyed seeing, because Dewey's been a character who we've always seen a lot of, but we've gotten like 3 or 4 episode arcs. This episode was like a 1 episode arc with Dewey, and I really enjoyed it. So Dewey's lawyer is getting a restraining order, saying he has to stay back 1,000 feet. Vasquez asks what he can do without violating Dewey's civil rights, and Dewey's released from jail. And the second he's there, Dewey's like, oh shit, Raylan, what are you doing here? I love that scene. Raylan tells him that the federal Geiler ID'd him. He holds out a paper saying the Mexican government wants to extradite him for murdering Johnny Crowder. And he says he didn't kill him. And Raylan says to tell him who did. And he says he can give him a week to jog his memory. Then he's headed to Mexican jail. And Dewey says he has a bus to catch, and then he needs a $6 blowjob. Oh my god. Dewey shows up to the brothel, and basically he wants nothing to do with Raylan. And I like seeing that with Dewey. I mean, Raylan's never been there for him. He's never really done anything for him. So I like seeing that Dewey really wants nothing to do with him. So he shows up to the brothel, and he sees it looks abandoned, and a sign on the door says that it's gone. And that's huge for him, because that was where he always went. He always went to that brothel, and it's done. So he's cursing, he's pissed, he sees a pair of panties on the clothesline, tucks it into his pocket, and he spots a little wood turtle, grabs it out of the wreckage, goes to a diner, and is surprised to see Abigail as one of the hookers there. One of the hookers that worked at the brothel. She now works at this diner. And she basically tells him her story, that when Audrey shut down, God sent her a sign. He asks about Mina, and she says she wasn't really her sister. Dewey flirts, and she offers him a meal on her. He was hoping she was offering sex and asked to bone her one last time, and he doesn't want to, resist. Reggie comes over and asks if he's bothering him, and Dewey asks, didn't he knock him out? And he says she's got a new man, a new job. She says it was like fate, and he looks at the turtle and asks if she gets it. He says she lost it, he found it, then he found her. He says it's his sign. She says she has to get back to work. He turns her down food, kisses her, thanks her, then runs out, and I really like seeing that with Dewey. I mean, you're really seeing the position he's in. I like seeing that little scene with Dewey. So Boyd is painting the bullet-ridden porch when Ava brings him a drink. She says Tammy Lee took her back to the beauty salon, and she has the early shift. He tells her they need to talk, but she has to do it later. He says he had time to think while she was locked up, and really he has. I mean, all of last season he was trying to get her out, and he had a lot of time to think about that. So I definitely really enjoyed hearing him say that to her, because it's true. He really has had a lot of time to think. He's thought a lot about her death and things like, he thought about her being in jail, and I really like seeing that. So basically, he says Harlan is, and I really like what he says here, because it really sets the tone for what Boyd wants to do this season. What his motive is and things like that, what he wants to do with Ava. And basically he tells her that Harlan is dying and people are giving up and moving on. And he says there's a chance for them it's not there. He asks if she'd leave with him if he got a good sum of money. That's why he's robbing banks, because he wants to get enough money so they can leave. And what I like about Boyd is that he's not just a criminal to be a criminal. He always has reasons for doing things. And, the reason he's robbing banks is so he has money so they can go to Costa Rica. And he has to go to Costa Rica or Brazil. And she says no, then that's how much money he's coming into. And he says they won't be running for trouble, just escaping from Harlan. She says this is their home, but he calls it a ghost town and says they can turn into ghosts themselves. And she says maybe they are already, and leaves for work. And you can kind of see that Ava I don't know what's wrong with Ava, but she clearly does not want anything to do with Boyd. Like, she's shutting him down. And it's really sad to see, because they're such a great couple, and it was so sad to see them sort of, like, not really get along this episode. So, basically, Ava goes to the back of the shop for a smoke. Raylan walks up. She asks why he's there, and he says he came to see her. She says she works here, and he says it's a good place to meet. And I'm glad that Raylan finally showed up, because I really was looking forward to seeing this plot. And she says he can't sneak up on her. He says he can, and that Boyd won't be caught dead there. She says she can't do this. Raylan says she can't ignore his texts, and that's why she got a surprise. That's who the texts were for. It was from Raylan. And he tells her she does. She says she's afraid to look at him the wrong way, or he'll put a bullet through her head. And I gotta say, Raylan, honestly, this season is kind of unlikable. I really love his character. But the season's focusing a lot more, it seems, on Boyd and Ava. Like, they seem to be the two main focuses. Raylan's sort of like background, honestly. Raylan's sort of the villain here. It's sort of like Boyd and Ava's story, and Raylan's sort of the villain. I actually really am enjoying that, because the whole season's about him catching Boyd. So I really like seeing that. So he tells her to keep an eye on him, and basically he tells her the reason he's there is that Dewey's out and will come to see Boyd. He tells her to keep an eye on him and says he's setting up a command post at Arlo's, so he'll be close. And Boyd comes into the bar, and Carl says Earl, and, basically he makes sure that she wants to do this. You can kind of see that Ava doesn't really know if she wants to do this, so Boyd then comes into the bar. Carl says Earl and the pig went to eat, and Boyd tells him to tell Earl to bring him something to eat because he's so hungry he could eat the house out of a low-flying duck. And Dewey's waiting in the office. Boyd slams him into the wall and searches him. Boyd asks how he got there. He says he got out of the pen, then hot-wired a car. He asks why he's asking all this, and Boyd says robbing him at gunpoint was not leaving on good terms. Dewey holds out the turtle, says it was a sign, and it's the only link to his family. And he says he came back to Boyd because it was a sign. Boyd asks exactly why he's out of jail. He says he heard him admitting to kill Wade Messer. And Dewey says it's because the harassment suit he won against Raylan. Boyd asks what he wants, and Dewey says he wants back in and wants his trust. And he wants to basically, be back on Boyd's side. And I wasn't sure if Boyd was really going to have him do this. I wasn't sure if Boyd was really going to agree to it, because it doesn't seem like Boyd agrees to stuff like that. It just doesn't seem like Boyd would agree to something like that easily. So, at a word from Boyd, Carl drags him out of the office. Boyd does not want him to come back. And basically, the rest of the episode, we see, Raylan and Tim. They spy on Dewey. They want to make sure everything, they want to make sure what happens with Dewey, happens. And Dewey, basically Raylan's talking to this guy named Ty, and Ty seems like a very suspicious character. This guy Ty, I don't trust him. I don't know why. I just don't trust him. He seems kind of like Daryl Crow mixed with Robert Quarles, and he's not a main villain or anything, but I definitely feel like he's gonna be a secondary villain. Now, he wants to put up the compost on Arlo's grave and everything, so that way the whole Dewey thing can work out. So that's what they decide to do, is they put a compost on it. And meanwhile, there's this great chase scene with Dewey, and basically Raylan also talks to Ava about what she needs to do. And Ava doesn't really want to do this, but he tells her straight out that if she does not complete this mission for him, then she's going to get sent back to jail, and that's not going to end well for her. That she's going to send back to jail, and if she gets sent back to jail, then obviously she doesn't want that. So basically, she has no choice but to turn against Boyd, even though she doesn't really want to. She doesn't really want to turn against him, but she really has no choice because Raylan isn't giving her a choice. He's not giving her a choice as to what she should do. He's telling her, you need to do this or you don't do anything. And I like seeing the side of Raylan, but at the same time, we're focusing more on Boyd and Ava, so in many ways we care more about them than we do about Raylan. I still love Raylan's character. There are some great scenes with him. I love what they did with him, and it's not like a Jax thing. It's not like I hate him like Jax. It's not like that, but I really am enjoying what they're doing with this season so far. And basically, so as I said, basically, Raylan has set up a compound, posted his family home, which is now for sale. As I said, I talked about that. And back in town, Boyd sends Dewey across the country in a tow truck, and it's a decoy run that draws Raylan. Now with free reign, Boyd's crew robs the local bank with just a few of the safe deposit boxes. And the heist nest alleges some deeds. The rest of the crew thinks they got the wrong boxes, but Boyd assures them quietly we got the right box. So I'm not sure if that's true, if they got the right boxes. I mean, Boyd's never been wrong, so I'm assuming they got the right box, but I don't know. Dewey comes back at Boyd's bar angry at having been sent on a meaningless errand. It pretty much was a meaningless errand. And basically, it's going to be bad. He starts crying about how it can't be like the old days when they ran a white supremacist group back at the old church. And he calls Dewey back to sit in the office, and he talks to him, basically. And Raylan also has a scene with Art, and I really like the scene he had with Art, because Art is still suffering from his condition. He's still suffering in his condition of retiring and everything. He's now retired, and he's still suffering from his bullet wound. And basically what he tells Raylan is that you're never going to be able to see Winona again. You're never going to be able to see your daughter again. It's not really meaningful advice more than it is, this is what your life is now. It's more of, this is what your life is now. You can't get out of it, and you need to accept it. It's a very sad scene, but it's what's happened to Raylan, and you got to feel bad for him. But it was very sad to watch, and I definitely felt very bad for Raylan because of that, definitely. I thought that was a very well-done scene, though. I definitely really enjoyed that scene. So basically, after this happens, we get the final scene with Boyd and Dewey of what happened. We finally get that final scene, and basically, Raylan. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens there. So Dewey comes back to Boyd's bar, angry at having been sent on a meaningless errand. He starts crying about how it can't be like the old days. And Boyd calls Dewey back in his office, and he tells him it's all coming to an end. This is basically what he says. It's whatever it was we was hoping for. These days have long since passed. Now, I'm not saying I'm giving up, but I am saying never thought it would be this hard. It seems like maybe those good days are gone forever. He gets Dewey to come over to look at an old photograph of coal miners, including his grandfather and uncles. And basically he tells him that those men fought through hard and bitter days. But if you look closely, you can see they had hope and had a future. And it seems like he is trying to convince Dewey about something. But then, without thinking, I think basically so he can get out of Harlan, he shoots Dewey right in the head, and Dewey's dead. Dewey Crow is dead, and at the end of the first episode. So how do I feel about that? I'm very happy that the show did that, because it was a very slow-moving episode, but it was more of a character development episode. As I said, that's really what it was about. It was all about character development, and I thought it was very well done because I definitely really enjoyed it. I really like the scenes between Tim and Raylan. I love seeing them work together. It seemed like they were trying to make up for that, because a lot of people said we didn't have enough of that, so I like seeing that. And this season is just amazing. I love what they're doing with it already, because the whole theme of the season is more of grief and loss and depression and sort of just what's become of all these characters and sort of like the outcome of what Raylan's done to them. Now, I still really love Raylan's character. There's some very funny moments from this episode. There's some very fun moments with him. But the second that Boyd kills Dewey, you can see he goes into full brawl mode. He is ready to take down Raylan and let the fight begin. I can't wait for this fight to start. It's going to be awesome. Now let's talk about this Ty guy as well. I don't trust him. I feel like he's going to be allying with Boyd. I don't trust him. I don't know what it is, but there's something about Ty that I don't trust. I don't know what it is, but I don't trust him. And I really don't know what it is, but I don't really trust this guy. Maybe you guys do. I really don't trust him, though. We'll have to see what happens there. Now, as far as what happened with Ava, it's going to be interesting to see what Ava decides to do here, because Ava seems like she doesn't really care about Boyd, and in the promos it looked like her and Raylan are going to go back into a relationship, because Boyd talks about how he says to Raylan, I'm going to kill your girlfriend, but the thing is with Ava, like, she and Raylan were very close in season 1. They have not been that close, really. Really, he's been there for her sometimes. Like, he's not really been her guardian angel, though. Like, season 1, she was deeply in a very bad place. You know, she was getting abused by her husband, but Boyd kind of saved her. Raylan was the one that helped her in season 1. Boyd didn't really save her till season 2, and now she's stuck with Boyd. So I really don't know if she turned against Boyd. She just doesn't seem happy. And at this point, I kind of feel like the relationship is just going to fall apart. I really don't feel like it's going to continue and be a good relationship. I really feel like Boyd and Ava are just going to fall apart. It's very sad to think about, but I feel like that's what's going to happen there. And definitely, it's going to be very sad to watch. Now, as far as what that final conversation Art had with Raylan, I definitely feel like what that's trying to say is that your life is this way, you can't change it, you're never going to be able to see Winona and your daughter again. It's very sad, but again, it's what Raylan has kind of done to himself, and it's very sad to watch, but that's really the harsh reality of what's going on here. And you gotta feel bad for Raylan, but it was very sad to see. Now, as far as the bank robbery, I like seeing Boyd in this position as a bank robber. I like seeing him in this. I don't like seeing him with the heroin. It kind of got annoying. I like that they changed it up a little bit, because you got to do something a little bit different in your final season. You got to make sure your final season is a kick-ass season. And this season is very different from the past seasons. The past seasons have been, we introduce the main villain and we get the story going. But the main villain this season, there is no new main villain. The new main villain is Boyd. Boyd is the focus of this season. Taking down Boyd, going against Boyd. Boyd trying to leave Harlan. It's all about Boyd. And I love it. I love this whole Raylan versus Boyd feud. Now, I will say this about the final season. If they want to do this Raylan-Boyd feud, I do not want the fight to be till episode 12. And I definitely feel like they're going to end the season perfectly. I've never been more into Justified than I have with this episode. Literally, I was focusing to death on this episode. To death. I absolutely loved this episode. I loved everything that happened in it. I loved pretty much just everything about it. I thought the plots were amazing. I thought the scenes were amazing. I love what they're doing with the characters this season. As I said, it's very, very emotional this season. Definitely. It's very emotional. You can tell it's very emotional. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the box and everything. We don't know if that box, if they got the wrong box. You know, Boyd's saying it's the right one, but you never know. And I guess that's basically it. I like seeing Rachel in the position as taking over for Art. I like seeing that as well. I thought that was well done. Definitely enjoyed that. And I also like seeing, Raylan put up his house, put up his, Arlo's thing. I like seeing that as well. But that's basically it for my review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Also, I like the new character of Carl. I like the guy that's working with Boyd. This guy, Carl, is working with Boyd. And he thinks that, basically that Dewey was a rat. And I like seeing that Boyd, they're still doing this. Boyd's 10 steps ahead of Raylan. Like, there's a scene where it seems like Raylan and Tim are going to catch Boyd, but Boyd's 10 steps ahead of them, so he does a whole bank heist thing and everything. And a lot of people are saying this. Dewey, while he was kind of smart in this episode, the reason he died was because he was stupid. He was. He didn't realize that he was being betrayed. He didn't realize that they were playing him, and I think he just didn't realize because he didn't want to think about it. I don't know. But he didn't realize they were working against him. I don't understand why, but he didn't. And that's it, my review, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys saw this premiere. Overall, I thought this was an amazing premiere. I can't wait for the next episode. This is going to be an amazing final season. And honestly, out of all the final seasons I've seen in the past few months, I think this is going to be the most satisfying. I really do. I'm very happy with I'm getting very happy with the way this is going so far. And I really hope it is. And if they keep making episodes as good as this one, the final season is going to be amazing. Hopefully. Let's just hope. I really hope it doesn't end with Sons of Anarchy. And that's the thing I'm going to compare this to, Sons of Anarchy. This was nothing like the Sons of Anarchy finale. The Sons of Anarchy finale was basically, the Sons of Anarchy was very, very slow. And a bunch of stuff happened, and none of it really needed to happen in the show. But no, that's not what Justified is doing. Justified is being very slow-paced as usual, and because Justified is not as violent as that show, they focus more on the characters. They do have violence in there, but they only do it when it's needed, which I love about Justified, and that's something I love about the show. But that's basically my review. Hope you guys enjoy it. I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be my review for The Flash. So I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.